So, you have a great draft law, and now comes the hard part, getting it through the political process and gearing up the affected institutions for implementation. This is mainly a task for politicians, but there are things you can do in the drafting process to help things go smoothly. For instance, if you followed this guide, you will have asked political stakeholders to give input on the policy paper, made sure their views were represented on the drafting team, and given them regular status reports. This sound collaboration during the drafting stage will help officials to support their political bosses. Even though the drafting team is no longer in charge once you get to the legislature, it's really useful to keep the full team, including international experts where you've got them, on hand to brief ministers and heads of department, help handle difficult questions, and inform the drafting of any amendments. Your aim, though, should be to taper off expert participation and build the ability of officials and politicians to defend and promote the new law. Every country has its own process for moving law through the legislature, but typically the first phase is tabling the draft law, some countries call it a bill, along with an explanatory memorandum. Clear, straightforward language is important here, because not all members of the legislature will read the draft law in detail. The next stage is usually publishing the draft law for public comment. Stakeholders can then check that their concerns have been addressed, or maybe not. Some who haven't engaged so far will realize that this is their last chance to protect their interests or assert their powers. This is a time of heightened debate and interaction. It can mean really hard work for officials and advisors. It's especially important to manage communications and media relations during this period. Again, if you did good work to build relationships in the early stages, it will pay off now. Thirdly, after the deadline for public comment has passed and any revisions have been made, the responsible minister submits the draft law to the relevant committee of the legislature. This is often a time of intense engagement with ministers and political advisors as they try to iron out potential flashpoints. The risk here is that important elements of the draft law get lost as the minister seeks political compromises. Once the committee process is done, there's one final chance to redraft the law before it goes to the main legislature. Powerful stakeholders often try to use this time to lobby for changes behind the scenes, and the drafting team can come under heavy pressure at this stage. The last stage is debate in the main legislature. Here, it's useful to have prepared the minister to field questions. Again, this will be much easier if you've set up and maintained good relationships in the preceding phases. Depending on how the draft law was received at the committee stage and the changes implemented by the minister, these debates should be reasonably predictable. Once the legislature adopts the final version, an implementation date will be set, and this is an important time to make final preparations for implementation and to check that the necessary support has been put in place.